And so then the play was over, and then I was like, and now what? I was like right back to square one again. Like, what do I
Mm.
do? So I just re-auditioned. I did the vagina monologues at UIC for 4 years, and then
Wow.
after the fourth year, I was like, okay, something else has got like what now? What?
Yeah.
And then Teatro Luna, um, they're a big time all female cast not for profit theater organization here in Chicago years ago.
Hmm.
Um, Goya Paz founded it along with Tania Sarancho, who's a big time Latina playwright as well. She does things like I think she did like an episode of Looking Glass or something like that. She's doing things with HBO. She did Vida. Um, they co-founded Teatro Luna, and so they were holding auditions. And somebody was like, "Hey, there's this local theater, and they're all women, and they do not. It's a not-for-profit theater, and they do like conscious work." And I was like, "Hell yeah!" Auditioned to do a play with them called Machos, which we kind of created off of interviews that we did that were done on men about their experiences being men.
Hmm.
And they thought it was going to be like this funny play about like a guy stereotype about women being locas.
Hmm.
I guess during the interviews, a lot of guys started bawling and releasing these like really deep stories.
Wow.
They would be like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry. I've never been asked that question. I've never told anyone that story." And so Tanya and Koya were like, "Hey, I think we have something here. Might be different than what we originally were aiming for." And so we ended up all like co-develop, not well, they developed, but we helped write, put together the play that ended up being called Machos, and we did it in drag, and we were the guys, and every piece was a different interview story of these people's actual, stories.
Wow.
It was really deep, man. And we had guys come up to us after the shows crying, saying, "Yo, I never that happened to me and I've never talked about it." So it was a lot of beautiful shit that we discovered that men don't get to talk about. There's always a lot of
Yeah,
big
because in men in society, like they don't go to therapy, they don't they have to mask their feelings.
yeah, they have to be macho again. Hence the name that we ended up landing on which was machos.
Right.
Be a man, be a
Yeah.
man. And so that play was freaking amazing. I did it a few months with them at this local theater, and then that was over. And it was almost like I
And
felt
then
like
you got back to your feeling of wanting to perform.
then I was like, and now it was like nothing was like launching me into the world.
Hmm.
Uh, it was like all these one-offs. Meanwhile, I'm still because of the vagina monologues, I've really like dove into the world of social justice and like grassroots organizing and activism, and I was doing a lot. Like I joined, you know, um, you know, not-for-profit organizations in Chicago, and then they would be like, "Gwen, can you host this event? We're doing a fundraiser for such and such organization." Then it started becoming more. I was getting away from the breakdance. I was getting older, girl. Ain't nobody breakdancing and fucking busting my face on the dance floor. So I wasn't doing the breaking and the beat girling so much, but I was still doing a lot of MCing. And people were like, "Gwen, can you MC this event? Gwen, can you?" So I was still on the mic. Now I was MCing on for profit events and stuff like that. And then someone sends me a flyer for a stand-up comedy workshop by Mikey O, who's this big-time Latino producer here in Chicago. If you ever
Hmm.
want to interview a Latino producer, he'd be a dope interview too. He does a lot of good stuff for a lot of comedians, but mostly, his focus is on the Latino, but he's all inclusive. And so he had a stand up workshop going on. And my girl was like, "Gwen, you're hilarious. I still don't understand why you're not doing this." And I took the class, and that was 14 years ago. This past
Wow.
After that class, it was over, girl. After that class, we did a little graduation show, and then somebody came up to me and was like, "That was funny. I run a little show at such and such bar. Can I book you for 5 minutes?" And I was like, "Oh my god, yeah." And then after that, somebody came up to me the same way, and then I just kept saying
Wait a
that
minute. So after you took this class, you started getting booked right
for
away.
stand up. Yeah.
Booked for paid. No, not open mics, right? Straight to bookings.
Yeah, but I mean, there were tiny bookings, but I took them. They were like,
Well,
"Hey,
no, that to me, that's
we're all
tiny
the theaters."
bookings. That's a big deal because a lot of people are just I interview a lot of comics and some are just trying to just go to open mics, open mics, open mics, which no shame.
No shame at
Um,
all. did the open mic game. I did it a handful of times. For me, I
Mhm.
felt like it was working against me, so I stopped. I didn't go, and not working against me as far as like working on the craft, because anybody who works on their jokes in any capacity, whether it's at home with yourself or fine tuning it at showcases or doing it in open mics, that's not the waste of time. I just felt for me, the open mics I happen to have been attending at that moment were filled with a lot of comics. And so everybody's just sitting there with their arms crossed, waiting for their turn. You're not really getting good feedback. You you know, I don't really recommend people take their friends to open mics, because you're not gonna get honest feedback if you're open
Right, right. Yeah, you need to hear, you need to,
a crew in the audience. They're
right.
gonna ask what you, because you're their friend. So to me, I was like, where can I get an honest audience? These rooms are full of comics who aren't trying to lift each other up. At least if it was a room full of comics where we could be like, hey, you know what? I got this tag for you. Or, dude, I was paying attention. That is gold. I thought you were going to go in this direction with it. Maybe like
Yeah,
where you actually work, but it's a competition.
right.
How people view it. And so,
No, you're right. You're absolutely right about that, because some people, they could just keep on going to open mics, and you're not getting that audience feedback at all.
no,
And
you
you
don't
need
want,
that audience. You need to hear the laughter. You need to hear the audience to grow, to know when you're going to hit, you know?
because then you, like, let's say you go to open mic and it's filled with your comedian buddies and or your family or whoever you invite, and you're rocking that open mic with that set all the time, and you think it's great, and then you get booked and you do it at a showcase and you eat on stage, you know, because you had the wrong impression because you thought you were getting honest feedback at the open mic. So I don't know, I just didn't feel like I was really, I couldn't get my questions answered. My question,
Hmm.
is this funny? Does
Hmm.
this work? And I would leave the open mic being like, I can't tell. I can't tell if it's dark or if the comics were tired because it's 2:30 in the morning and there was 52 people on the lineup and everyone kept getting bumped. I can't, you know what I mean? So for me, yes, I did open mic it, but really my work was on these showcases. So kudos to the
Mm.
producers who are taking risks and going out and booking people, and that's what showcases are for too. You don't have to be completely polished, but
Yeah.
you know we all
But
have to.
that's amazing that you got booked right from, you took your class, but you had all of those things. You were doing the emceeing before that. You already were acting before, so you had that stage presence. You knew how. It was just a matter of getting your own material within yourself and writing.
Right, which to me was more than half the battle,
Uh-huh.
because I always felt like I can make people laugh, but the transition to doing it by, like, it's different when you're having a conversation, you're bouncing off of someone,
Hmm.
and it's easy, then things just come out. But
Yeah.
you're on stage and you're the only person talking. I was like, how do I translate the funny things I do when I'm in a conversation into a stand-up format when it's just me talking to an audience who's just watching me? So that to me was like, how do I do it? So the stand-up workshop actually helped me get a little bit of a footing on that, and then the graduation show, which was an actual show in front of the public,
Hmm.
I got it out there, and I guess I got enough laughs. It was only a 5 minute set, but it was enough for this one dude to ran this little show in Oak Park, Illinois. It was like, hey, I run a little show called Cheap Shots. Shout out to Pablo Rodriguez for putting me on. I'll never forget that.
Pablo put you on.
Yeah, and then I did his show, and then the same thing. People were like, well, that was funny. I do this. They were all little bar shows, and then bigger producers were like, hey, I run this show at such, and the events started getting bigger and better, and I just kept going. My thing is say yes later. Like
Yeah.
I'll say
Say
yeah,
yes later.
yes, yeah, hell yeah, I'm open, I'm available. And then I hang up, and I'm like, oh, I'm bugging me out. What do? I said yeah, I gotta do this show.